everyone, my name is Gabby and today I'm going to be bringing you my Lord of Shadows reaction video. So I've been meaning to upload this for several months now. I read the book at the end of May and it's September. I have no idea why I've been delaying so much, but I finally sat down, took some notes, and I just want to dive right into discussing this book, all the things that go on within it, talking about some of my theories, and just get into the entire amazingness of the second book in the Dark Artifices and the beautiful world that Cassie has created. So if you are not caught up in the Shadowhunter Chronicles yet, maybe you're still reading the Mortal Instrument series, maybe you're still reading the Infernal Devices, maybe you're on Lady Midnight, wherever you are, once you read Lord of Shadows, once you're all caught up, come and join us and grieve together because your heart's gonna be broken, you're gonna be destroyed by feels, and you're gonna need a support group. We are here, and I'm really excited to discuss this amazing book with you guys. So those of you who have not experienced Lord of Shadows yet, go and read it, and then once you finish, come back and discuss and grieve with us together. But that being said, I'm gonna say goodbye to the non-spoiler people and enjoy Lord of Shadows. But those of you who have been through the pain, let's dive in and discuss it. So first things first, I want to start by discussing Annabelle, because I feel like her character is the one that I have the most confusion about, and I feel like we need to get the most answers from. What we know about her is that we tried to resurrect Annabelle 3 times throughout the course of the Dark Artifices from what we know. The first time was using Emma's parents. From that, Annabelle was in this sort of like out-of-body state where she was aware of everything going on, but she couldn't really move and she couldn't really say or do anything about it. She was just sort of stuck. Then the second time that we tried to resurrect her is at the end of Lady Midnight. And I want to read to you the epilogue and the results then because of that. So the epilogue is only a few sentences long and it's titled Annabelle. For years her coffin had been dry. Now seawater dripped in through the fine porous holes in the wood and stone, and with the seawater, blood. It fell onto parched bones and dry sinew and soaked her winding shroud. It moistened her withered lips. It brought with it the magic of the ocean, and with it the blood of the one who had loved her, a stranger magic still. In her tomb, by the sounding sea, Annabelle's eyes opened. So pretty much what you can infer from that is that Malcolm's blood, the one who loved her, was able to get her to open her eyes. So at that point, we have no idea how capacitated she is. Is she entirely awake? Is her eyes open and she's still in that same out-of-body state, except now in a paralyzed state where she can see everything, but she can't move any of her limbs, she can't say anything, she really can't do anything about it? Or is it something else entirely different? But then we know the third time that she's resurrected using Arthur Blackthorn's blood, the way that she's supposed to be properly resurrected, she's entirely awake and she goes and she kills Malcolm. Now I'm going to sort of introduce to you my theory and what I think happened in between those 3 times that Annabelle was attempted to be resurrected. I think that at the end of Lady Midnight in the epilogue, when Annabelle's eyes opened, that she was entirely resurrected. And I would think that when she's alive, she has no idea where Malcolm is. She's in this entirely new world. The one person that she can think to go to is the one person that Malcolm had an alliance with, which was the Unseelie King. And so she went with him, formed an alliance, and that's why she ends up with him at the end of Lord of Shadows. And then somehow he was able to put her back into an incapacitated state, allow Malcolm to re-resurrect her, have her kill Malcolm, and then possibly get in with the Shadowhunters, find out information, then be able to come to him and report back on whatever it is that's going on. Because obviously it would seem like Annabelle has a vendetta against Malcolm and a vendetta against the other Blackthorns. So why is that? So we see that's Malcolm's blood that is able to get Annabelle to open her eyes. Blackthorn blood is the only blood that should be able to resurrect Annabelle. So how is it that his blood is able to get her to open her eyes, and in my case, I believe fully resurrect her? I believe that Malcolm has Blackthorn blood. I believe that his mother was maybe an exiled Blackthorn. Somehow she ended up giving birth to Malcolm, ended up dying, and now the other Blackthorns find out about this and have to take Malcolm in, which they took him in at a very young age. Why would they do that? Because they have a responsibility to, because he's a downworlder, and also because he is a Blackthorn. So Malcolm, having no idea what he is, sees a pretty girl, falls in love with Annabelle. Annabelle starts to fall in love with him, and the other Blackthorns freak out, you know, not only because is this a downworlder falling in love with a Shadowhunter, but because these two are distantly related in some way, shape, or form. And so they try to separate the two, and I think that Annabelle ends up finding out about how she and Malcolm are related, ends up freaking out, disowning him, and the other Blackthorns, Annabelle's relatives, end up having to torture her and end up having to make her suffer because they can't hurt Malcolm because under the Accords they're obligated to care for him. And so Malcolm ends up finding out about what it is that happened to Annabelle, finds out that he was lied to, and tries to go after her. And with Annabelle now having to have been resurrected 3 times, having to suffer and not being able to speak or being able to talk or be able to explain the state that she's been in, obviously when she's resurrected, the first thing she's going to want to do is go after him and go after the Blackthorns who made her have to suffer, and anyone in the family line who put her through that. Being in this entirely new world, obviously she would be terrified, so being awake, the first thing that she would want to do is kill Malcolm because she doesn't want to be with him if that's going to be an incestual relationship. That probably freaks her out. She's probably angry with him, and she obviously isn't happy with the other Blackthorns because of what her family line put her through, and so the one person that she can think to go to is the Unseelie King because Malcolm had a previous alliance with him, and so now Annabelle forms an alliance, and that's where she is at the end of Lord of Shadows. That's a very like stretched theory, but it seems probable, and I feel like there has to be some explanation, if not that, but it's something that I came up with, and I feel like not enough people are questioning Annabelle. At the end of Lord of Shadows, after what she does, you can't trust her. There's something shady going on with her, and I think that we're gonna get answers in Queen of Air and Darkness, and I'm interested to find out what they are, but I need those answers, and I'm excited for them whenever it is that we get them and whatever it is that they are. That's my theory, but I would love to know what you guys think because I'm just really confused, and I think that there's answers there and that there's pieces of the puzzle that we are not getting. That we have some backstory as to what happened to Annabelle, but we're gonna have to find out more, and we're gonna have to put some puzzle pieces together because we are not getting all the answers right now, and we need them. So let's talk about all of the other ships and what's sort of going on with them in this story. So of course we have to start with Emma and Julian, who are of course our main OTP in this series. So we have the Parabatai curse, which we find out about at the end of Lady at Midnight, which pretty much says that if you fall in love with your Parabatai, you're gonna go mad, you're not gonna know right from wrong, you'll kill your family members, and you'll turn into a monster. And of course, with Emma and Julian finding out about that, Emma's the only one that knows. She eventually tells Julian in Lord of Shadows. With both of them now knowing about that, they obviously do not want that to come to fruition. But if Cassie is going to write about that and is going to mention it in this book, we're gonna have to find something out about it. So my theory is that this curse is not real. That it's something that is completely entirely fake and something that was made up by the Clave because 2 shadow hunters that were Parabatai fell in love. They started to gain immense power like Emma and Julian have in Lady Midnight and Lord of Shadows. In Lord of Shadows, we see them burn down a church with their combined power, and in Lady Midnight, we see that their combined power is able to help heal. So obviously they're having powers and things that they should not have, and if 2 shadow hunters are able to be more powerful than the Clave and able to have abilities that regular shadow hunters should not have, the Clave is going to want to stop that, so they create this entire curse in order to sort of trick other shadow hunters and other Parabatai into not falling in love so that they don't have these groups of people gaining immense power that they shouldn't have and possibly able to overflow the Clave. Because the Clave is a corrupt system as much as it's the better option compared to some of the other things that we've seen. It's still corrupt and it needs to be fixed, and hopefully that's where we're going to end up with the wicked powers, and once we wrap up the entire Shadowhunter Chronicles is with a better and more stable governmental system in the shadow world. But I believe that that's sort of what's going on with the whole Parabatai curse, because my thought process is that just the curse itself seems very over dramatic and very over the top and sort of ridiculous, but again, that could be entirely wrong. But I think that we're gonna have to see more from the Parabatai curse and possibly find out more to it, see it either come to fruition or find out that it's false. Something like that. So obviously our end goal with Emma and Julian is to break the Parabatai bond and have them together. So there's 2 possible options that we've come across in order to solve this and not fulfill the Parabatai curse and to be able to have Emma and Julian end up together. Number 1 is to break the Parabatai bonds. So the Seelie Queen says that she knows how to break the Parabatai bonds, but in order to undergo that ritual, it would break every single Parabatai bond in existence. So Jason Alex Parabatai bond, Clary and Simon's Parabatai bond, any other Parabatai bonds out there will all simultaneously be broken by this ritual. So obviously we don't want that to happen at all, but Julian is considering it, and that's terrifying. We're definitely seeing him going down a darker path, but obviously we have no idea how trustworthy the Seelie Queen is, but it's something that we're contemplating, and it's quite scary to think that that would happen, but I think that that would be very interesting, and I think that would definitely create a whole new path for the Shadowhunters and definitely create a whole new change in the shadow world. So it's definitely something that I could possibly see happening and something that I could see Cassie doing, but I'm just terrified because that's like the last thing that we would want to happen. So then we end up deciding at the end of Lord of Shadows that if 2 Parabatai are exiled, it'll lessen the powers of the bond. Emma and Julian decide that they want to have Emma exiled. They come to Robert Lightwood, they openly confess what it is that happened to them, and he agrees to do what he can to help them after explaining understanding about what happened between Robert Lightwood and Michael Whalen, he would be the one that would be most sympathetic and most willing to help him. But of course, he ends up dying, and so now that plan's gone to hell, and we are back to the Seelie Queen and her potential offer, and we don't want that. So we're screwed and back to square one. Obviously, there's the other ways of like one of them turning into a silent brother or turning into a downworlder. Like, and those things we don't think are possible, but we're gonna have to get some resolution, if not one of the ones that I've previously listed. But I'm scared because they've had sex multiple times. It doesn't seem like they're going to stop, and this parapetite curse is probably gonna come to fruition, and that's quite terrifying. So now we have Ty and Kit, and they are going to be our two protagonists in the Wicked Powers, which is the final trilogy in the Shadow world, and it's so sad, but I'm so excited to get to see them be main characters. I know that they're going to both live, thank God. I love that Kit and Ty in this book are basically like Sherlock and Watson. They're doing a whole bunch of sort of discovering and hunting down and trying to find answers, and they're the ones that are able to make contact with Annabelle, and they're just so adorable together, and I'm so excited to get to see them grow closer, especially in Queen of Air and Darkness after everything that happened with Livy. We are definitely going to see Kit and Ty grow closer and see Kit comfort Ty, and it's gonna be so beautiful. But I want to specifically focus on Kit for a second. The first scene that we get in Lord of Shadows is between Kit and Jace, which is like the one scene that we were all hoping for once we found out about Kit being a Herondale at the end of Lady Midnight, and it was wonderful, and I was just so glad that we got that scene because we were all waiting for it, and Cassie Clare delivered, and it was amazing. But then we have Kit's ancestry. He comes from this lost line of Herondales, so we have no idea who his mother is or his father, Johnny Rook, what it is that Johnny Rook is. And in the History for Notable Shadowhunters and Denizens of Downworld, with Johnny Rook's character page, when it lists his species, it says unknown, and when he was born was unknown. So we're gonna have to find that out and also find out who Kit's mother is, because if he's a Herondale, one of the two of them had to be a Herondale, or Johnny Rook is not Kit's father, and we've just been entirely bamboozled. So we're gonna have to find out how it is that Kit fits into the Herondale lineage, and I think that we're probably gonna find that out from Katarina Loss. So my theory is that we're going to have Simon and Izzy's wedding in Queen of Air and Darkness, because that'll be something uplifting amid all of the very depressing things going on that will be happening. And Katarina will be there because she talked to Simon about the lost Herondale. She is probably going to be able to provide some light to Kit. So I think it's really important to read Tales of the Shadowhunter Academy before you read Lord of Shadows, because without that background, Kit's entire ancestry and where he relates to really would not make sense. So it's gonna be interesting to find that out and find out how Kit fits into the story, who his parents are, and to be able to get that necessary background. And I definitely think it's gonna be interesting to see Kit go through that self-discovery, because of course at the beginning of the book he really doesn't feel like he fits in with the Shadowhunters, and then he starts to grow closer to Ty and to Livy, and he starts to feel like he belongs and starts to see himself as a Shadowhunter, and it's beautiful to see that. And when he's gonna be a protagonist, it's gonna be even more wonderful because you're gonna see him have that acceptance, and it's gonna be great. But I loved Kit and Ty in this book. They're adorable, and I can't wait to get to see more of them in the Wicked Powers. So then we have Drew and Jamie. So Drew in this book sort of feels left out and has to be the babysitter. She wants to go out and she wants to fight and be a shadow hunter and help out and be able to do work and feel like she's helping the other shadow hunters and is involved in all the things going on. But she just has to be the babysitter, and she really isn't able to get much involvement in everything that's going on. And so when she has a secret of her own that she's hiding Jamie, who had a relationship with Christina, that they have a little bit of a past, and he suddenly appears, they start to develop a relationship, and I'm interested to see that grow, because I definitely think that they're gonna end up together and it's gonna be adorable. But there's a thing that happened. Jamie has this Seelie artifact, and Drew gets a hold of it, she touches it, and she ends up in the Seelie court. And while she's there, and she doesn't end up stuck there, it's like she's there but she's not there, she ends up seeing a Seelie boy. And his description fits the exact description for a Jonathan Morgenstern and Seelie Queen baby. Guys, that's like almost 100% confirmed. If that is not a Jonathan Morgenstern and Seelie Queen baby, I would be surprised, because I feel like we've all predicted it. We've all seen it coming. It's likely their baby, and I'm just flipping out. There's a few things though that I feel like also back this up. You know, not only the way that the boy looks like, but also the fact that the way that time works in the Seelie court is so different. So for some people, time slows down like it did for Mark Blackthorne. But in this case, could time speed up to be able to make the baby be older than what we think that it would be according to the timeline and everything that's been going on since that baby would have been born? I have no idea. But we also have the fact that Clary and Jace were sent on a mission to the Seelie court. What was it that they were looking for? Most likely Jonathan's baby with the Seelie queen. They were probably sent to retrieve it. That's my theory. I definitely think that it's going to happen, that we're going to find out more information, and that's going to play a big part into Queen of Air and Darkness. And I am pumped because we've all been waiting for this for a very, very, very long time, and we pretty much got confirmation. My jaw dropped when I read that because I knew, and I flipped, and it was wonderful. And I'm so excited to find out more information, and it was great. It was great. So now we have this really complicated love hexagon that's going on. We have Mark and Kiernan and Christina and Diego and Zara and Emma and anybody else who possibly decides that they want to get involved in this mess. So we have Emma and Mark together at the beginning of this book because they're pretty much trying to lure Julian away and stop any potential relationship between Emma and Julian, and that of course ends up failing miserably, and we're just gonna pretend that that never happened, like we pretend that Clary and Simon never happened. It's like that same sort of thing. Then we have Kiernan, and we end up going to the Seelie court to save him because the Unseelie King is going to kill him. Mark originally makes the decision to not go after him and then does it secretly. All of the rest of the Shadowhunters and the crew end up going after him. They end up in the Seelie court, and we have this whole intense fight scene that goes down, and Emma sees her father. We think that her father's alive. We have a panic attack. Turns out that it was just an illusion. But then we get Kiernan and we save him, but we find out that all of his memories have been wiped, that he doesn't remember anything that happened. He doesn't remember his betrayal at all. Eventually, he ends up getting all of his memories back, and I feel like that kind of ruins any potential relationship that's going to happen between Mark and Kiernan, so that's sort of out the window. And then we have Christina and Diego, and they are back together in the beginning of Lord of Shadows. He's perfect Diego, nobody really likes him. And then we have Zara, who gets brought into the plot line, and she's a bitch, and she wants to pretty much just have a whole bunch of regulations on downworlders, and she wants to take over the LA Institute, and we don't like her. Nobody likes her. Her and Diego are apparently engaged, and so Christina's obviously pissed off about that because Diego lied straight to her face, so that ruins any potential relationship that they have. So we're left with Mark and Christina, and I would love to see that because the two of them are adorable together, and I've loved the scenes that we get to see from them together, so I'm excited about that. But I definitely think that with Zara, we're definitely going to be bringing in a lot of discussion about Shadowhunter and Downworlder politics, because Zara pretty much wants to have the Downworlders tracked and wants to have a lot of regulations on them, and of course nobody is for that at all. We're not okay with that at all, but it's bringing in some discussion, and it's quite terrifying, but I think we're definitely going to see more of that in Queen of Air and Darkness as well, and hopefully nothing too bad comes from it. So then we have Gwen and Diana. Diana is really shady in Lady Midnight. We have no idea what's going on with her. We think she did something bad. Maybe she was a part of the circle. You know, we ask her to run the Institute, and we're hoping that she'll run the Institute, but she shies away from it. She says that she can't, and there's something shady about her that happened that would cause her to not want to run the Institute. We don't know what it is. In Lord of Shadows, we find out that it's because she's transgender. Like, anyone expecting that at all, because I for sure was not, but I love it because I was thinking the worst of her, but little did I know it's just because she's trans. Like, that's wonderful. I love seeing that representation in this book. It completely entirely took me by surprise. I love it. And then her and Gwen together. Gwen is adorable in the way he tries to woo her, and the fact that he does it in the most like inhumanly way possible. I just have so much respect for. I love their scenes together in this book. They're adorable. I can't wait to see their relationship grow. I think that Diana's probably going to eventually come out to the other children. They're going to be accepting of her. It's going to be wonderful. And I'm just, oh God, I love it, and it made me so happy to read that because I wasn't expecting it at all, and it was phenomenal, and I'm just so impressed with Cassie for including that rep and for just really growing her world and making it more diverse and allowing other people to see themselves in the fantasy world that she's created. It's the best, and I bow down to her for that, and I have so much respect for her. It's amazing, and I wasn't expecting it at all, and it blew me away. I was amazed. So then to wrap this up, we have Clary and Jace. And so of course, they're not our main characters at all in this book, but their togetherness is very much a priority in this book. It's something that we bring up in this book. So in one of the short stories that we get at the end of Lady Midnight, Jace proposes to Clary and she doesn't give him an answer. And we're all wondering what's going on with Clary? Why would she not immediately say yes to Jace? Is there some reason? And we're all scared. We all want answers, and that's like the one thing that we're looking for in Lord of Shadows, because Clary and Jace are our OTP for life and we just want to see them happy, have a happily ever after. That's all that we want. But is that gonna happen? No, because here's what we find out. Clary and Emma have this beautiful conversation and Clary tells Emma that she's been having visions and that she believes that she's gonna die. Cassandra Clare is gonna kill off Clary Frey and nobody is safe, and I want to cry. I want to like take Cassidy and just like be like, why are you doing this? Like, Clary and Jace have gone through hell and back. Literally, leave them alone. Their series is over. Let them live happily ever after. And I was so scared that Clary was gonna die in Lord of Shadows, and like that was just prepping us for it. But we have no idea. She could be dead in Queen of Air and Darkness. She could die in the Wicked Powers. She is not safe, and none of us are okay. I was sobbing. I was like, this isn't real. This is fake. Clary was having dreams before in the Mortal Instruments series. Now that I've been rereading it, she had dreams before that the angel sent to her. So is this the same thing? Is she gonna live? Is Cassie just screwing with us? Because this isn't okay. I just want Clary and Jace to be happy, and I am not happy that Clary is going to die, that she will die, that Cassie is even hinting this at us. Is she just doing it to scare us? Will she not die? I don't know, but I'm terrified, and I just want Clary and Jace to be happy, and it hurts my heart that Jace doesn't know this, and Emma now knows this and has to hide it from Jace, and it just, oh, it hurts. So now let's discuss our character deaths in Lord of Shadows, because one of the big things that Cassie told us while we were waiting for the book to be released was that 4 characters were going to die. And we had no idea who those 4 characters were going to be. We were prophesizing. Now we got our answers. So the first one was Arthur Blackthorn. He sacrifices himself to resurrect Annabelle. Pretty much Malcolm comes after everyone in the LA Institute, and they all go try to take him down. He lives, and Arthur Blackthorn, being like in a half, out of mind state, he goes, he sacrifices himself. Malcolm ends up killing him to resurrect Annabelle. Here's the thing, this didn't hurt as much because he was a character for me that I didn't have a lot of connection to because of what it is that he made Julian go through, and I just like expected it. Like, I feel like he was a character that was easy to sacrifice, and it felt like very logical for that to happen. Then Malcolm dies because the minute that Annabelle gets resurrected, she goes and kills Malcolm. So that again didn't hurt me at all because he was pretty much our antagonist in this series so far. So I was glad that he got killed, although I'm interested to find out what Annabelle's motives were for doing that right away. So then we have our 2 deaths at the end of Lord of Shadows, which is Robert Lightwood and Livy Blackthorn. So these 2 hurt the most because I guarantee you that none of you saw Robert Lightwood's death coming. He has his own series and his character arc is done with. I really wouldn't think that he would be fair game, but that was Cassie's sort of warning that nobody is safe. If a character is alive, even if their series is over, doesn't matter. They're just as likely dead. I feel like that's Cassie preparing us for what's gonna come with Clary, and I'm just really upset because not only was Robert, Julian, and Emma's only hope to be able to deal with the parabatai bond and everything that's going on with them, he also was starting to finally form a relationship with Alec, and they were starting to grow closer after, everything that they went through in the Mortal Instruments series. They finally were starting to repair their relationship, and it just hurts that that had to happen to Alec, and it makes me so mad because I didn't particularly like Robert Lightwood, but he was one of those characters that I feel like it's just, you needed him, and right when you need him, right when you're starting to like him, boom, dead. So now we have Livy, and this is where it really just hurts you because Cassie, I feel like it was definitely a risk for her to go and kill off one of her main characters and to be able to do that because it's very ruthless and very brutal, but she did it, and I think that it paid off because it hurt, and I think we're definitely going to transition into a more darker Julian because his one goal was to protect his family, and now he's failed, so now he's going to be ruthless and at all costs do whatever it is that it takes to be able to protect his family. So we're going to definitely see him become a lot darker, and that's going to be terrifying, but we're also going to see all of them in mourning, and it's going to be a very sad thing. But I think that with that, we're going to see Kit and Ty grow closer, we're going to see the family and themselves grow closer, and we're going to see a real fight start. It was definitely a risk, but I feel like it was really important for her to make that decision, and definitely I feel like we're going to see a lot of repercussions from it. So a lot of these character deaths, like half of them were okay, half of them hurt. I feel like Cassie was really smart in who she killed off, but I'm definitely scared for Queen of Air and Darkness because it's only going to get worse from there. So now I want to talk about some of the things that fall into the other category, things that just sort of really don't have a place in any of the other categories that I've been discussing with the book. So first things first, we have a warlock with green skin that appears in Lord of Shadows. So who is it? Is it Ragnar Fell? He's a warlock that we know that has green skin. Did he somehow manage to live the events of the Mortal Instrument series and we just didn't know about it? Is it John Shade? He's another warlock with green skin. I have absolutely no idea, but we're gonna find out. I definitely think that we're gonna get some answers there because I think that it's important. I'm interested to see how that's going to tie into some of the events of Queen of Air and Darkness. So then we have all of the events at the very end of Lord of Shadows. We pretty much have all of the Shadowhunters gather together at the council to be able to interview Annabelle and be able to sort of put her under trial with the Mortal Sword. With that then, we get to bring back Helen and Adeline, and I love getting to see them again. I'm glad that they're back from Wrangel Island, and hopefully they're going to be there to stay permanently. It just made me so happy to see all of them reunite and all of them so close together after everything that happened with Helen and Adeline. I hope that they're going to be an ascent to everything that all the Shadowhunters have to go through in Queen of Air and Darkness, that they're going to prove themselves, that they'll be able to stay. So I love getting to see them back. We also have a really terrifying thing that's going on, which is that there are warlocks that are getting sick, i.e. Tessa and Magnus are two in particular that we know about, and Magnus pretty much passes out in Lord of Shadows and we have no idea if he's gonna be okay. Most likely we assume he will be fine, but I'm terrified because Tessa and Magnus are two of my favorite characters and Cassie is going to just like rip them to pieces, and I'm not okay with it because it would be so like Cassie for us to all sort of think like, okay, Alec and Magnus are together and we all have the fear that Alec is gonna die eventually and Magnus is gonna be alone again. Well, what if Cassie just decides, ha, bitch, you thought, and have it be the exact other way around and have it be Alec the one that has to suffer even though he's the one that's mortal? That would just be ruthless of her, and I totally see it, and I'm scared because that seems like something that Cassie would do, and it's not okay, and I want Tessa to be okay. I don't like that she's sick. What's going on with the warlocks? Can we fix it? I want answers. I'm terrified. I just want them to be safe. They're my two favorite characters and this just hurts. So then we have another thing that happens at the end of this book. Annabelle flips out after being tried under the Mortal Sword with all the pressure, everyone screaming at her. So she goes and she kills Robert, and then she goes and she kills Livy, and the Mortal Sword breaks because of Cortana. Emma's sword, something's going on with it. If it's able to break the Mortal Sword, which was given to the Shadowhunters by Angel Raziel, clearly it has some sort of power or ability that it should not have. What's going to happen there? Because it broke the Mortal Sword, is Cortana going to absorb all of the power of the Mortal Sword? Is it somehow going to have absorbed the power from Malcolm's spellbook in Lady Midnight, and so that's why it was able to break the Mortal Sword? I have no idea, but we're gonna have to find out repercussions there, and it's definitely going to be a very interesting thing, and I think that we're going to have to find out that there's more to Cortana's power, that there's something that's happening there that we wouldn't have originally suspected. So I think that about wraps it up for my Lord of Shadows discussion. This was relatively long, but I had lots of things to get into, lots of questions, lots of things that I'm theorizing, but I'm very interested to know what your guys' thoughts are on Lord of Shadows. Was there a particular scene that you really enjoyed? Is there certain theories and things that you have? Let me know. That being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye!
Wildflowers don't care where they